One of the giants in the service bureau industry of 3D printing is gone. Shapeways has officially shut down operation and is filed for bankruptcy. And I think it's important enough that we dedicate an entire episode to talking about it. So, let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. This is PrintFixFriday, where we traditionally go through and fix print failures. This one is a little bit different. There's a news story with Shapeways being insolvent. They are bankrupt. It's over. That is big enough for me to say we should really sit down, have a talk about it. We have confirmation now from Jules Witt, hope I'm saying that right, plant manager at Shapeways, stating, earlier this week, I had to deliver difficult news of Shapeways' upcoming bankruptcy filing to our dedicated team. This was a somber moment in my nearly 12-year journey with Shapeways, where I have cherished the people, the challenge, and the opportunities to scale emerging technology with a mature fulfillment service for a diverse and demanding industry. In these years, we were able to scale the Eindhoven? Sure. Production to a highly efficient production facility with deep domain expertise in XLS, MJF, SLA, MBJ, and MJP. We celebrated successes locally to the very end and had an extremely economical facility with high margins producing a significant turnover. While we were aware of some of the Shapeways struggles, the bankruptcy news was a shock to everyone. Seeing the surprise and disbelief on the faces of my colleagues was truly heartbreaking, yet in this dark moment, the team's response was nothing short of inspiring. Their solidarity shone brightly as team members, even those off-duty, came in to spend time together to ensure the facility was left in its best state. This moment of unity brings a testament to the incredible progress we've made over the years. We set our own direction, focusing on becoming a strategic partner to our customers through our quality management with ISO 9001, IATF 16949, and ISO 14001. Value-added services, assemblies, design services, and competitive pricing driven by a deep domain expertise and economics of scale in 3DP and AM. Their success wouldn't have been possible without the support of their partners, EOS 3D Systems, Stratasys, Relay, AM Flow, and a company's name I will absolutely butcher because it has an umlaut. Thank you for your support over the years, enabling us to innovate the facility to its current state. Shapeways was considered at its peak one of the kings of the service bureau market. And this, to me, shows an interesting revelation that we've talked about, but this is as close to confirmation as I'm going to get. Companies are in-housing 3D printing at an astonishing rate. And because specifically FDM/FFF and the resin SLA and MSLA have become so fundamentally affordable that these machines become, quite frankly, disposable. It becomes complicated for companies like Shapeways and other service bureaus out there to simply survive. Shapeways is a publicly traded company, which means if you want, you can actually download and look at their actual numbers, right? This is Shapeways' consolidated balance sheet, the one that goes to shareholders that they publicly post on their website. You're not normally wanting to have numbers like that in parentheses. Parentheses mean a loss. And oh yeah, that's in thousands. Shapeways was not doing good. While they went public back in 2021 via a SPAC, which we've talked about SPACs a while back on the channel, cartoon episode if you want to learn about special purpose acquisition company, and they went with the Galileo Acquisition Corporation, and they valued the company at $605 million after generating $195 million in net proceeds. Their optimistic projections of 95% annual growth from year 2021 to 2022, and they aimed for $150 million in 2023 and revenue of $250 million by 2024. That I don't think could be much further from the truth. Now, obviously, these are your forecasted numbers. They're all gonna be, we're going to do amazing, because you ultimately can't predict the future. And we can see that their financial disclosures revealed that in Q3 of 2023, they had a revenue of just $8.4 million, a gross profit of $3.4 million, and a net loss of $19.4 million, signaling a almost 200% increase in net losses since Q3 of 2022. We're not making this video to just poo-poo on Shapeways, because Shapeways was one of the big dogs, and they paved the way for smaller businesses like 3D Musketeers and others to survive. In fact, we were a production partner with Shapeways for a couple of years when we first were getting started at 3DM, because, well, they shot a lot of work over to us, and while some of the work was not great, actually a lot of the work was not great, there were some products that we could accept and make good money on. And unfortunately, on July 22nd, after considering all strategic alternatives, Shapeways Holding ceased operations and filed a voluntary petition for relief, the bankruptcy filing, under provisions of Chapter 7 of Title 11 of the U.S. State Code 11 U.S.C., whatever that weird thing is, 101 Bankruptcy Code. There was a $5 million rescue bid that they just straight up rejected. And looking at their numbers, I can see why. And unfortunately, their entire executive team, which is Greg Kress, the former chief executive officer, Alberto Ricci, chief financial officer, and Andy Need, chief operating officer, all have resigned. Unfortunately, if you have pending orders with Shapeways, I wouldn't hold your breath, because they're probably not going to get done. This is one of those things where Shapeways took a big gamble, and going public was likely their downfall. In 2021, we saw a lot of companies go public via SPAC, and pretty much none of them that I can think of are doing very well. I mean, Desktop Metal was not doing great at all. They actually just got bought by Nano Dimension. If you guys want to see us cover that, we will. And it's funny because we talked about this like a couple of years ago, and it finally happened. So that's kind of interesting. A lot of these SPAC companies that went public, they're all struggling to maintain stock prices in a means to keep them listed with the big boy stocks. They have to maintain over a $1 share price to do that. And we see that according to their Form 8-K, that their entire C-suite level executives and directors resigned, while neither the company nor any of its subsidiaries have officers or employees. A Chapter 7 trustee will now be appointed to the bankruptcy court to administer the company's bankruptcy estate, including liquidating of assets of the company. Once a Chapter 7 trustee is appointed, an initial hearing for creditors will be scheduled, and a notice for bankruptcy case filing will be sent to known creditors. Now, to preface this, I am not a tax professional. I'm not a bankruptcy professional. I am a business owner. My understanding of Chapter 7 is that the creditors, people that are owed money, will have the ability to get as much money as they possibly can to fulfill their debt, right? It's unlikely any of the creditors will ever be made whole. Seeing how bad Shapeways has actually been doing financially, with all the assets they likely have as a company, it's unlikely that those assets will attribute to making their creditors whole. My understanding of how this works is that the machinery can either be obtained by creditors or it can be auctioned off for cash, and that cash is then distributed. This sucks, because there's a lot of people that likely have a fair bit of money tied up in Shapeways, people that are actually investors within Shapeways, and that's not you people that might have prints waiting from them. It's people that have tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars invested into this company that are all of a sudden left wondering where their money went. They have to hope that during this liquidation, that they'll be able to make some of their cash back. Now, we can see that Shapeways was founded in 2007. That is a year before I even got into 3D printing. And it began as a spin-off of Royal Philips Electronics in the Netherlands, and quickly becoming the go-to marketplace and service provider for 3D printing. Yeah, like when we were structuring 3D Musketeers, we looked at how Shapeways was doing business and said, all right, we can see what they're doing right, we can see what they're doing wrong, or things that we agree with and disagree with, I guess, is probably more accurate. Let's do things similar, but do things different. Right? I can't say we've ever done that much in sales, but I can certainly say we have considerably more profit than Shapeways has. We can see here this is their actual Form 8-K, and we'll link to it down below, but it's available via the investors.shapeways.com. So what does this mean for 3D printing service bureaus as a whole? We are seeing a large number of 3D printing farms pop up. These are people that will, make one style or a few different styles of parts. They'll make hundreds, if not thousands of them, and they'll sell them. We're seeing a lot of people sell dragons and dragon eggs and things like that on Etsy. And I personally don't agree with these business models. They are very, 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 very high volume, but low margin. Shapeways was touting that they were increasing their gross margins, where we can see that their gross margin was 46% compared to 41% for the same period in 2022. And their gross profit was up. But when we look at net, that's really where it matters. And we've talked about this before, where I worry that a lot of people that run these 3D print farms that are, you know, doing Etsy orders and all that for pennies on the dollar don't really understand the amount of labor that they're putting into it. And they might be bringing home $30,000 to $40,000, but how many hours are you putting in, and what does maintenance look like in the coming weeks, months, and years for your machines? But we're not seeing a lot of companies like 3D Musketeers popping up, right? Kind of your mini Shapeways competitors. We're seeing a lot of these 3D print farms opening up for specific purposes. We're not seeing a lot of service bureaus. And that to me is the change of the times, right? If you don't have a really good target market as a service bureau, it becomes complicated because people have to know that you exist. You have to rank high on Google, and you have to have a good enough website and a good enough user experience that people are going to be sending you parts. And that's really difficult to do, something that even we still struggle with. We're actually going to be doing a full website refresh here relatively soon. This was in the ticket for a while, well before Shapeways filed for bankruptcy. Like, this came as a surprise for me too. And Shapeways did what a lot of publicly traded companies do. They gobble up assets, they do their best to maintain those assets, and they try. And unfortunately, sometimes you try and you fail. My worry here is that a lot of other service bureaus are going to be following in these footsteps. Now, I know a lot of service-based businesses, not just 3D printing, but service-based businesses in general, are seeing some decline right now because, well, economic times are kind of tough, and it's difficult to spend money on things like 3D printers. That's why we try to show affordable methods to do it, and we have looked at even lowering our prices to the average consumer so that people do have better access to the printing. But instead, for right now, we just lowered our minimum to do work with us. Instead of $50, we've lowered it to quite a bit less to make it more accessible. But ultimately, we as a company have decided that we want to work more with small businesses. That's where the money is for us anyways. And besides, one company that gives us lots of orders is way more valuable than a bunch of individuals that give us 1 or 2 orders. And certainly from a business standpoint, it is much easier to deal with. If you never use Shapeways, this probably doesn't matter to you. But if you've been around long enough, this one kind of hits home. Because Shapeways, they were the ones that were untouchable. They were the big dog. They were the one that nobody could get close to. They were the largest. They went public. Certainly, there have been others to step into their shoes and fill the role. And I expect their big competitors to be launching similar platforms to what Shapeways did in the coming weeks or months, to where individuals can upload files, people can buy them, they are printed at this competitor, and then shipped directly. Now, you might be wondering, Grant, will 3D Musketeers do something like that? Currently, we don't have a plan to. The reason for that is just staffing. Right? The bulk of our team is remote, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. I think one of the bigger companies will be better able to handle that. But hey, if we don't see them picking up the slack, we might throw our hat in the ring and see how it goes. There's no shame in trying, and Shapeways gave it the proper college try. That is not a failure of any one person in particular. I think it's the coming times and seeing how technologies have become very, very affordable. I mean, MJF. That is HP's answer to SLS. You can get one of those machines for $250,000. Brand new, $250,000. Whole room's gonna run you 300, 350,000, somewhere in that range. Last I checked, those numbers may not be 100% accurate. For a small to medium company, okay, that's like 5 million or so in tickets. Spending $250,000 on a machine to drastically reduce your cost of manufacturing and drastically reduce your time to market is an easy buy. And so if you have the right people to run the machines, why would you outsource to a company like Shapeways? Now, here locally, we have clients that are doing just this, where they're in-housing it. But interestingly, every one of them that is doing it is choosing 3D Musketeers to set up the business for them. Basically set up a dream workshop. We're going to run it, we're going to staff it, we're going to do everything to assist these companies in bringing it in-house. So the thing I would tell you is, if you're a service bureau out there that is also maybe seeing some struggling, be open and willing to adapt with your local market. If you're seeing a lot of orders come in for SLS, invest in SLS or MJF. It's basically the same thing. If you're seeing a lot of orders come in for metal, invest in metal. Charge accordingly. If you're seeing a lot of orders come in for plastics, then hey, get plastics. Get reliable business class machines. Stop overspending and stop underspending. At the end of the day, productivity is ultimately what matters. I've got a heavy heart for this because I like Shapeways. And I thought that they were kind of the ones blazing the path in the industry. I guess I didn't notice that the path that they were blazing was one, well, of their own capital. I would think that as the company's assets get liquidated, there might be some opportunity for those of you looking to expand your service bureau to pick up some industrial grade machines at probably a decent price. But just be aware, the maintenance on them might not be up to date, right? And they're likely going to be sitting for quite a few months. And there's one thing I know about industrial grade machines: they hate sitting around. It sucks. They do not like sitting around. So where exactly does this leave us? It leaves us that one of the industry titans has stuttered. It's it. It's over for Shapeways. And unless they somehow restructure and rebuild, or someone buys the naming rights, they're not coming back. They're going to be liquidating the company's assets. I don't know if that includes the data too. Be very curious to see if that includes data and what that looks like for consumer data. I'm sure mistakes were made throughout the years. Everybody makes mistakes. That's life. That's life. That's life. But I think their biggest mistake was going public. It wasn't needed. Staying as a private company likely would have protected them. And we see pretty much since they went public, they've been struggling. Every single year had comprehensive loss. By the way, again, that number's in thousands. So 16 million, 20 million. It's a lot of money. See, the big thing with going public is now you have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders. And I think that's what kind of did it in. I mean, literally, according to Voxel Matters, since the company went public, the shares tumbled. Shapeways aimed to scale manufacturing toward powerful software platform, but the results did not meet expectations. Revenues were stable in 2022, but that did not suffice for Wall Street investors. Over the past few quarters, the company has been conspicuously silent on its financial results. And yeah, I agree with Voxel Matters here. Shapeways began as one of the very first online B2C and B2B 3D printing services. Its business model was challenging from the start, with significant initial capital expenditure investments made possible by the support of hardware companies such as EOS 3D Systems, Stratasys, initially, and later Relay, Rossler, and AM Flow. The company was able to flourish for nearly a decade and expand to the US with a new HQ in New York until the leap into the stock market and subsequent downfall. A similar company, Sculptio, took a very different path and was acquired by BASF in 2019, enabling it to further build its business into a profitable one without huge investor pressure. Now Sculptio is back to operating as a standalone medium-sized company with the newly formed Forward AM Technologies. Going public is no joke, right? Life is a little bit different when all of a sudden you don't just have to answer to yourself, you have to answer to your shareholders. I think Voxel Matters puts it very succinctly here. It's a challenging time for many AM companies that perhaps were too far ahead of their time and reached too far. On the other hand, many companies that have been building their businesses in the AM industry one step at a time without overreaching are doing just fine, steadily growing at sustainable rates. Still, the AM industry could not exist without those who dared to dream big. That's really the best way that I could put it too. Shapeways, well, they reached for the sky. You know, they did the whole thing, if you shoot for the moon, you miss, you land amongst the stars. No, you don't. If you shoot for the moon and you miss, you go bankrupt, right? That's kind of how this works. Going public is described as one hell of a moonshot. I've said it from day one, I'd much rather grow slowly and predictably than have explosive growth. We've certainly seen that be impactful in negative ways on 3D printing manufacturers, like ones that have theoretically really good machines, but have absolutely atrocious customer support. And as far as I'm concerned, a good business is a mold of everything, including top-notch customer support. So again, what does this mean for the future of other service bureaus. I think if you grow slow, take it easy, take a decent shot every now and then and see where you land, but stay out of the moonshots. I think we'll all be okay and we'll weather this storm. The industry is changing a lot. We're seeing what were once incredibly expensive machines coming down heavily in price, and with machines like the Micron, that's, you know, a sub $3,000 SLS printer. It's really like a $4,500 SLS printer that is being kickstarted right now. Hey, Grant from the future here. I'm still trying out Catcher. I swear it's a different one from when we filmed originally, but yes, I'm aware of Formlabs acquiring Micronics. Stay tuned. That's Wednesday's video. Hiding the mess behind me is gonna have to wait because this one's good to talk about. So put your thoughts in those comments because I'm gonna be reading them. We're gonna be talking about it on Wednesday's video, all about the acquisition of Micronics by Formlabs. Love it or hate it, it's business, baby. Back to Pass Grant. But we're seeing theoretical SLS printers come out under $5,000. And even before them, right, there's the Sinterit, Sintertech also is no longer in business. But even before that, right, we had the Formlabs Fuse 1 Plus, which they run about $40,000. But if you're looking to do SLS, it's not a bad way to get your feet wet without spending $250,000 plus, or at least $100,000 plus. I'm certainly more cautious now than I was before Shapeways shutting down. Because remember, if it can happen to them, it can happen to any of us. The hardest thing, it's for the team at Shapeways that are now finding themselves jobless. They'll land on their feet. A lot of them are going to get scooped up by competitors, with quite a few of them likely going into different roles elsewhere. But that's really got to suck. A company that you believed in, with a team that you believed in, all of a sudden is no more. Love to know your all's thoughts down below. But I thought that this was a big enough news thing to make it all about for PrintFixFriday, because I think it's okay to switch gears a little bit and talk about something that is important to me, important to business, and certainly important to 3D printing as a whole. Because I know a lot of you might have one or two printers. Maybe you want to make a little bit of extra cash on the side. You've got a lot of evidence of how to grow businesses, especially in this industry. Maybe hold off on going public if you're in that space. So take my advice with a grain of salt, obviously. I'm not running a multi-million-dollar company by any stretch of the imagination. But hey, maybe the ones next to us actually are. Big thank you to all of our channel member supporters whose name is listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you for what you all do in making these videos possible and supporting the channel. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so. Links in that description. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the efforts that we do here, including reading like 18 articles about the same freaking thing and still not fully understanding it. So hopefully those that know a little bit more about tax law, specifically bankruptcy law, will have some things to talk about. Maybe we should look to try to get a bankruptcy lawyer. Any of you know a good bankruptcy lawyer that would love to come on the podcast and talk about this in a long form method? I would absolutely love to have that happen. That is all we have for you all today. Don't forget to leave a like, but stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. And hey, subscribe while you're at it. If you made it this far, freaking subscribe. Oh yeah, since you did make it this far, we're going to start giving away filament in these episodes. This one felt like a weird one to start with, so we'll start giving away filament next week. Stay tuned. See ya.